first order of business is acceptance of the minutes of December 17th. Motion to approve those.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Excellent.
Aye.
Chief, are you correspondence?
Yes, I have some letters of correspondence here. I will try to read them and also look at the screen at the same time, which is difficult to do. We did get a Christmas holiday correspondence from a resident of Norwich. I don't believe this person from Norwich had any interaction here in Darien, but they were just sending out Christmas cheer to police departments and supporting of police across the state of Connecticut. So much appreciated from a resident in Norwich. I got a very, very nice letter from, obviously, I don't know how old this young lad is, but fairly young based on the letter that I'm looking at. He's thanking us for both catching criminals, catching people who speed on our streets to keep us safe, and he would appreciate a letter back from someone at the police department. So I will be responding back to him in short order. So thank you to the young man, Darien resident, for sending us a letter. I got another nice note thanking Detective Capelli, who does some of our car seat checks and installations from residents that would check their car seat not once but twice. So that is indicative of the service we provide. Due to COVID, we're kind of not doing that all the time now, but we're going to hopefully be back in business with that in very short order. Lastly, we got a nice generous donation of $100 from a resident on Shady Acres. Much appreciated there, and I sent them a thank you in reply. So that will go in the police department gift fund controlled by the police commission. So those are 4 letters of correspondence.
All good. Department activity. Captain Marin?
Yep. So this is going to run from the period of December 17th through yesterday afternoon. On December 20th, a 23-year-old Norwalk man was arrested for DWI at approximately 9:30 a.m. on the Post Road. On December 21st, a 39-year-old Stanford woman was arrested for her role in a domestic violence incident at a residence in Darien. On December 21st, a 50-year-old Bronx, New York man was arrested by warrant on numerous charges for his role in multiple domestic violence incidents that took place in Darien since the beginning of November. On December 22nd, a Post Road business and nearby parked vehicle had windows shot out by what appeared to be a BB or a pellet gun during the overnight hours. On December 27th, 29-year-old Darien man was arrested for DWI following a single car crash on Middlesex Road shortly before 1 a.m. On December 30th, a 24-year-old man was arrested for his role in a domestic violence incident. On December 1st, I believe that was a subject who lived in Darien as well. On January 6th, a 20-year-old Darien man was arrested for interfering with an officer after he ran from officers when he was observed carrying a rifle in a town park. The weapon was later determined to be an air rifle, which is prohibited to possess in a town park. On January 6th, items of clothing were shoplifted from a DCA thrift store on the Post Road. On January 7th, a Nearwater Lane resident reported that she fell victim to an online scam regarding the sale of kittens. The resident sustained a loss of several $1,000s. On January 8th, a Robinson Street resident reported that a UPS package containing an iPhone 12 and other items was marked as delivered to his residence, however, never received the package. Investigation revealed that an unknown subject intercepted the UPS driver and claimed to be the intended recipient, and the package was released to the individual by the driver. This incident remains under investigation by UPS and by the Darien Police Department. We had 20 motor vehicle accidents in the same time period, 3 of which involved minor injuries. One involved a bicyclist crossing the Post Road in the area of Post Road in Sedgwick. We had 1 forced entry burglary of a vehicle in a parking lot of a business, 11 burglaries of unlocked cars and driveways, 3 stolen from driveways that were unlocked and had the keys inside. And of note, on those particular incidents, the suspects that burglarized an unlocked vehicle during the overnight on December 28th at a Sherry Lane residence also used the garage door opener to access the home while the residents were sleeping. A vehicle with the keys left in it stolen from a Clubhouse Circle residence on December 23rd was recovered in Stratford with bullet holes in it. The vehicle stolen with keys left in it from a Stephen Mather Road residence on the 28th It was the second time that vehicle was stolen in 3 months. The vehicle with the keys left in it stolen from a Timber Lane residence on January 11th was also involved in a shooting in Bridgeport later that day. That was all.
So, Captain, just quick question for you. Were any residents hurt during any of those burglaries or anything? I know the chief wrote a pretty detailed letter to the public urging them to lock their doors, cars, etc. Any residents hurt or no?
No injuries reported. This was all later reported type stuff to us. However, it does seem like the level of severity of what happens after these incidents is definitely on the rise.
Thank you.
The same car stolen twice, that is kind of a showstopper. Gee, I don't know how to help that, but and I don't know where this, I know it's a special meeting, so we cannot add to the agenda, but this is more prospective department activity. I know lots has been going on, and as we head to inauguration and 50 states, or anything we're doing or?
We are in constant contact with both local, state, and national organizations on what might be transpiring over the next 7 to 10 days. Some of that is law enforcement sensitive, but I can assure you that we are up to speed on things that could occur here, both in our state and across the country, and that we're monitoring it very closely. And we do have concerns, and we will address them as they come up. Just one thing before we break away from the unlocked cars, our residents, if you're watching on Channel 79 or you're watching this live, you've heard from me before, and you're going to hear from me again. As the captain says, these incidents are very, very distressing. I don't think it's a stretch to say that if the cars were armed shortly after they were taken, there's a possibility that the people were armed when they took it. And again, we're opening up our doors and leaving them unlocked here and inviting people to come commit crime. So we need the assistance of the residents simply to lock their cars. Very, very few cars are being taken or anything taken from cars that are properly locked. So expect to hear from your chief once again, and an appeal to public reasonableness to please lock your cars to help us help you.
Okay, if that is the close of the department activity. Old business, COVID-19 update.
Well, we are back at full strength here, thankfully, at the Darien Police Department. A good quantity of our sworn staff has received their COVID shot for their first go around. I don't know what the actual percentage of our staff is who have chosen to get it, but I think it's a fairly large percentage. We're all probably due to get our second shot in the first or second week in February. We're hopeful that this is the beginning of the end and that we can get back to some semblance of normalcy in 2021. And we're thankful for the opportunity to get this vaccine to protect our staff. So as it goes right now, we have full staff. All civilians are here, all sworn staff is here, and all well.
Good news all the way around. Building issues update.
I'll give that over to our administrative services captain, Shredders, for building update on both HVAC and other sundry items in our building.
So it looks like the installation of the jet system for the sewage problem that we've been having, it seems like that has been a success. We have not had a reoccurrence with that problem since it's been installed. As far as the building issues, we had a kind of a roundtable meeting yesterday with a representative from Automated Logic and people from Department of Public Works to get an update on the HVAC progress. It's coming along. There's still some things that need to be tweaked, but Automated Logic is very attentive, and they seem to be addressing all of our concerns. So we're hoping that by mid-February, everything is in the building is going to be where it should be. So hopefully our next commission meeting, I'll have more news that shows that that progress is going forward. But we're optimistic.
And this was a large expenditure on this HVAC. I think so far we can safely say that it is monies well spent. Automated Logic, to be quite frank, came back to us on several things that on the design and the as-built plans that were not done the way that they said that they were done a decade ago, to the point where they were wondering how it was functioning at all, much less functioning anywhere quasi-correctly. So they are hot on the trail of getting all these things that were at issue. And I do believe that, I think they said, Bob, by the end of February, they think they should be out of here completely and the system should be operating optimally and fully functionally, and we will not be talking about HVAC issues any further. It should be a good thing for me.
Do we have an ongoing contract with them or something? Obviously, for 10 years, someone's been showing up and trying to do stuff. Have we hopefully upgraded our ongoing?
For 10 years and a lot of hair and a lot of gray hair and follicles coming out, yes, that company is no longer here. Automated Logic has now been our chosen vendor. We have a contract maintenance agreement with them going forward. And we think it's the dawn of a new day and a better day where HVAC is like our telephone. We don't need to know how it works. It just works and we don't have to talk about it. So I'm fully confident in their abilities to get us where we need to be.
At risk of putting too fine a point, I'm hoping that the jet system does the same. We don't need to know how that works. We just want that to work as well.
Correct.
Okay, well, that's happy news. Okay, any other old business? We will move to new business, traffic issues. We have Mike Galante here. I think it's, I don't know when, Chief, you got that, but the commissioners received the transportation study from the applicants 2 days ago at all 157 pages of it. We have been going through it, but luckily for us, we also have Mike who has spent more time than 2 days with this. So we are hoping to get an overview from him of a little background, what his thoughts are on this. We have questions. I do want to say that we aren't voting. This is our first crack at this. We'll see how it goes, how far we get into it. And, but I assume we will, Chief or Captain Shredders can correct me, but we will probably be taking this up at a subsequent meeting. We will not conclude anything today.
I think that's a very fair assessment. Yes.
If the chief or the captain don't have anything, Mike, I'll just turn it over to you to do whatever you do to walk us through this.
Sure, thank you. Mike Galante, Hardesty in Hanover. And just so you know, we've been involved with this particular application for 7-Eleven probably since July or early August. And the report that you just received a couple of days ago is probably their fourth report. And I say that only to indicate that we've been reviewing all of these reports from day one. And I think you may know that we've been working with the town for many, many years on reviews and traffic studies and safety issues and things like that. The chief and I have known each other for more than a couple of years. But we got involved with this at the request of Jeremy Ginsburg, as you know. We were very involved with the review. We had a lot of comments on the first report from July. We had more comments in September. We met with the applicant's traffic consultant in a Zoom meeting like this, probably 3 times over the last few months. We've had telephone conversations. I've been to probably at least 2 Planning and Zoning Commission hearings, and there's more coming up. And I believe there's a Zoning Board of Appeals meeting coming up very soon, like the 20th, which I guess is next week. We've had a lot of comments that they've responded to, and their responses were not acceptable to us. So they went back to the drawing board, and that's why there's 4 reports that have been floating around. The report that you have that's probably dated December 31st of 2020 is their final report. And I would say at this point that we're in agreement on what they did, how they did it. We may not agree with every number in that document, but it's at a point where we can say it provides a reasonable assessment of the traffic conditions on the roads, but it doesn't provide some conclusions other than to provide a lot of numbers and charts and so on that we as traffic engineers understand. And that's why we're here to help you guys. And I understand you have not been involved with this, so I'll give you more of an overview today. And I can certainly come back your next time if we need to have a, more discussion. It's perfectly fine. There's a lot of.
And Mike, just real
Yes.
quick, is a quick question for you. Is it typical that you have 4 iterations of a report from an applicant, not specific to this applicant, but just generally speaking? Is that
No,
typically the process?
no, it's more like 2, just to give you an idea. We were not we just weren't happy with some of the assumptions, the methodology, the way they conducted some traffic counts. And keep in mind, we're in a pandemic, so doing traffic counts now is very different than this time last year, actually. But there's a process you go through to do that. That's followed. It was prepared and provided by Connecticut DOT, and we, as traffic engineers, follow that process. And we're doing it. Quite frankly, we're doing this everywhere. We do work in Connecticut and New York, and we're following these same procedures. So you can do this. You can do these analyses even in these times. And the way you do that is you go back in history as far as other traffic data that's available. And there's a lot of traffic data available on roads such as Route 1 and other roads in town and other towns, and that's how we do it. But to answer your question, Commissioner, no, it's just not for reports to get to a point where we can say we're comfortable with the information that's provided, and we can draw conclusions from it. We do our own separate analyses. We certainly know the area. We certainly know the Dutchess driveway. We know the intersection with the off-ramp from I-95 and the on-ramp, which is another issue. So we're very in touch with what's going on out there. But big picture, just to help you, and then we can certainly go from here. They're demolishing a Dutchess store or fast food store that's about 4,000 square feet. They want to replace it with a 7-Eleven convenience store that's about the same size. But the addition to that is that it's a 12 gas pump gas station that's in front of it. And from a traffic perspective, as traffic engineers, we look at traffic volume, we look at distribution, we look at accidents, we look at sight lines, we look at lots of different things. Just to give you some quick numbers, and not too many numbers, but the difference between the Dutchess and the 7-Eleven with the gas station, the 7-Eleven would generate, I'll just give you the morning peak just as a reference, would generate about 350 trips. That's inbound, outbound total traffic during the peak hour. The Dutchess, and let's assume it's a busy Dutchess, because they didn't do actual traffic counts. It's book information as far as trip rates that we use throughout the state, and every state uses this. That Dutchess is probably generating about 170 trips during a peak hour in the morning. The afternoon are similar numbers, but slightly lower actually. But the net difference in traffic is what's the point I want to make is the new 7-Eleven with the 12 gas pumps will increase traffic from this site by about 180 trips during a peak hour. And we deal with peak hours morning and afternoon. This report from the applicant does not include a Saturday analysis, and only for one reason it would normally be required is that there's no other Saturday data available along Route 1 that we can do a comparison to. But I certainly reference it in my review. And I assume you have my letter from January 12th?
We do.
Okay. I tried to summarize it, it's a lot in there, but I tried to summarize the whole process.
No,
But-
it was helpful.
But what
And Mike, your analysis also, you said here, I know Saturday is not included, but your thoughts were that Saturday, that would actually increase
Saturday,
relative to the weekday, correct?
absolutely. Saturday traffic, let's be realistic, at a 7-Eleven on a Saturday, we know what Connecticut Avenue looks like in Norwalk on a Saturday. It's bumper to bumper. I was actually there a couple Saturdays ago between one of the holiday weekends, and I never saw it so busy. I mean, I've been on that road multiple times on Saturdays. We do work in Norwalk too, but the Saturday traffic, because of this pandemic, I don't think has really changed. Not lately. I think it's way up there again. People are still going to the, Walmart and the Costco and all the stores that generate a lot of traffic. I only mention that because that affects Route 1, Boston Post Road in your town, in Darien. So even though the Saturday analysis was not provided in this report, there's certainly an impact from this 7-Eleven on a Saturday condition. So whatever the weekday afternoon analysis provides in their report for the 7-Eleven, I would say it's probably a little bit busier or a little bit higher volume on a Saturday condition. And keep in mind, we're reviewing it for the town. Obviously, the town's reviewing it. Town will make a decision on this application at some point. Connecticut DOT is also reviewing it because one, it's on a state highway, and they need certain permits from the state in order to construct or modify their driveway. So if I just go to some of my conclusions for a moment, that when you're going through these reports, you kind of look for, and then we can always chat again, which I'm guessing we may if you want me back. Some of the issues, I'll start with the interchange, 13 southbound ramps to on and off the turnpike itself. That's really 3 intersections, if you will. One's controlled with a traffic signal, the other 2 are stop signs. And let's just start with the southbound off ramp from 95 for a moment that hits Boston Post Road, and you want to make a left turn to go to 7-Eleven. You're essentially going through 2 stop signs in very close proximity. And I think you all know that the second stop sign, which means you're stopping in the median to make that next left turn, is a tough location. You can get stuck there. It'll back up into the northbound lanes. This development will increase that delay, will increase the queuing, and we believe it'll block the northbound lanes if this development was to occur. That's directly related to the driveway of 7-Eleven, where there's a discussion about leaving it, left turns permitted and right turns permitted outbound, or prohibiting left turns out, forcing that person who wants to go into town to the library, for example, to turn right out of that driveway, the 7-Eleven driveway, go through the intersections at the turnpike ramps, make a U-turn through those double stop signs, if you will, and come back in front of the site itself. That's been a comment and a concern probably from day one on this application. I believe the left turn should remain coming out of the driveway from the Duchess site itself. The sight lines are there. It's not perfect, but they're there. The Duchess has been operating for a long time. The accident data doesn't show a concern or an issue with that. There are accidents down at the old Kings Highway North intersection that I think are more alarming as far as numbers, and we can chat about. I'm going down the road, as you can guess, but the state will make the final determination. But I've already talked to ConnDOT about it, and they feel that the left turn should be permitted out of this driveway, even if it's 7-Eleven in the future. You may not agree with that, but there are some reasons why they're saying it. And there are some reasons why I'm agreeing with that. And I made that comment before I knew what ConnDOT was actually thinking. The driveway itself, there'll be some longer delays coming out of the driveway because you have more traffic. It has a negative impact on the fitness building across the street, which is the driveways are aligned. And the driveway from the 7-Eleven, there are 2 options, a 1-lane exit and a 2-lane exit. And what ConnDOT's been doing more recently, probably in the last 2 years, is they're not permitting 2 lanes coming out anymore at a stop sign, mainly because of the sight line. If I have an SUV and I'm in the right lane, and you have a little sports car next to me, and you can't look through my SUV to see if someone's coming, and that's the very simple reason why the state is not permitting a 2-lane approach on stop signs. That includes driveways, that includes off ramps, and so on. So we recommend actually that it's a 1-lane exit. A 2-lane exit actually doesn't work as well as the 1 lane because of the conflict between the right and left turn movements coming out. Depending on which arrangement there is for exiting, it spills into the gas station itself and starts queuing up into the gas station, which involves other issues within the site itself. So that's a concern. And that's for your interest too, because it affects internal, it affects Boston Post Road. Birch Road was brought up by those residents early on that intersection was not included. It was added into the model and the analysis. And yes, there's an impact at that intersection. Of course, it's the stop sign control. It's 1 lane out coming out of that large neighborhood onto Boston Post Road. But the increase in delay is not that much. So we don't have any recommendations to obviously put a traffic signal in there, which will never be approved, but we're not making any recommendations like that. The Kings Highway intersection was not included, but what I see there from the data that the captain gave me as far as accidents, there are a number of accidents out there, and I wonder if the repaving of Boston Post Road and the restriping has had any effect on that operation of that intersection. So that's something that you may want to think about a little bit further beyond today. So, and I'm trying to keep this to a big picture for the moment. I can certainly answer a question.
I have a question.
Yes.
I totally understand that it's 1 lane because if it's 2 lanes coming out, you've got sight issues. So you're down to 1 lane. Is there any thought that people will get frustrated or it's a long wait to take a left, they can't get out, so that what we don't want them to do is come out and take a right and then you turn because after you've waited so long and you're in 1 lane, so you have the option of going left or right. You haven't committed yourself and they finally say, oh, forget it, and do exactly what we don't want them to do, which is head towards Norwalk and then
Back.
you
Yeah.
turn around anyway.
Yeah, one way of forcing someone to make a right turn out only is to just design a driveway that's for a right turn out only. We know some people still do it. But what the state does is they'll permit you to have a 16-foot wide lane coming out. A lane is typically 11 or 12 feet wide. So it's wider, it's 16 feet. It's not striped with 2 lanes, but I can tell you they function as 2 lanes. So if someone's waiting to make a left turn out of that driveway, a car making a right can still fit around that car. That's how the state's looking at it these days. But I would still permit the left turn out of the driveway. I don't want someone to go down to interchange 13 and make that U-turn, because I think it's a greater safety concern if someone's waiting to make that left turn at the off-ramp intersections and they're kind of hanging out into the northbound lanes on Route 1. And there's rear end collisions or even right angle accidents if someone's waiting in the lanes, which they might do because they get hung up and they get stuck in the travel lanes. So there are different ways of looking at it.
And Mike, you already suggested in your report here that the intersection, Interstate 95 at exit 13, that those intersections, quote, need additional consideration by the town and Connecticut DOT with or without this development already.
I think so. And, we've talked about those intersections in the past for other applications in the area up in that part of town. It's always been pretty much leave it the way it is. Not much you can do. There were some suggestions of closing what's it, the Richmond Avenue or Drive intersection that's just north of there. Years ago, we looked at something on that corner. There was a discussion about no left turns there. And at the end of the day, it was, let's keep the left turns there. But, traffic increases not as much as it used to in the past. Forget the pandemic for a moment, but traffic has not increased. Used to increase 2% a year. Now it's maybe 0.5% a year. It's just very different. But those intersections, I think they're open for more discussion with DOT. Those are complex intersections. They're somewhat confusing. I know there have been stories of people coming off the ramp and turning left into the northbound lanes instead of into the southbound lanes. So, there is signing out there. Is there an opportunity for more signing out there to make it very clear that it's one way? That's something that I wouldn't say it's directly related to 7-Eleven, but it's something that the town should, have a discussion with DOT at some point. I know the improvements to Route 1 itself for the entire town, the repaving that went on from Stanford all the way up to this point, pretty much stopped at the interchange intersections. In front of the Duchess driveway, it's now a 1 lane each direction, where I think it was actually 4 lanes in the past. It's certainly wide shoulders, but to come down a lane in each direction is actually probably a benefit for someone coming out of Duchess. So there are different ways to look at it, but yeah, I mentioned that the intersection with the turnpike ramps should be something that should be kind of tracked in the future. And it's been looked at in the past. I'm not the first person to say this, I'm sure, but it's something that should be monitored as we go forward. And just last, I'll go to the Kings Highway intersection for a moment. There are a number of accidents there, and I wonder if some of the accidents have increased because of the repaving and the restriping of that intersection. I don't know. I just raise that as a potential red flag.
Mike,
No,
I have a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
I'm not a traffic engineer, as you know, but I'm an expert at watching traffic here for many, many years.
Absolutely.
In your report here, if my math is correct, and I'm not a math major either, peak AM and peak PM exiting a proposal of this type, that a motorist could expect to wait 2 minutes to make a left in the morning out of that parcel, and over 3.5 minutes to exit left in the afternoon. Is that correct?
That's correct. And
So,
let me
in
tell you,
reality, no one is going to wait 3.5 minutes to exit that parcel to make a left. I just
let me explain it a little bit. That's a computer model. It's based on the volume of traffic, of course, on Boston Post Road in each direction, and it's based on the volume exiting the driveway. And what that is a combination of everyone waiting the same amount of time to exit a driveway. Now, you and I may drive very differently. I may take 3 seconds and go. Someone else may take 1.5 minutes and wait for a really big gap. So just keep that in mind. It's a computer model. But what it says is that it's a long delay. And I think the longer delay actually is related to the 2-lane exit, as it actually works better with the 1-lane exit, if I remember correctly. But some of the delays are on the other side of the fitness building. directly affected by, what happens at 7-Eleven or Duchess or whatever it might be. So yeah, it's a long delay.
Yeah, and I guess the solution to that is to prevent the left-hand turn, which you do not recommend. I don't necessarily have an opinion on that, but then that creates an issue for us down at the exit 13 intersection, pretty significant issues.
And that's the reason why I'm suggesting keeping the left turn movement out of this driveway. It's been there a long time. Yes, there'll be more traffic in the future, but we're analyzing this model that the applicant did, and we're looking at is a peak volume condition. For example, at 10 o'clock in the morning, it may not be as busy as 8 o'clock in the morning, and 3 o'clock may not be as busy as 6 o'clock at night when everyone's supposedly going home from work. So just keep in mind, at the times of the day, that delay is a lot less. During these critical times, it's up there. It's a high delay, and yes, people get impatient, and that creates other issues.
Yeah, I'm thinking people who will go because the guy behind them is honking, or then you've got road rage. Why don't you go? And
That's correct.
3.5 minutes is a long time.
Mike, I guess I should say this theoretically, but in your expert opinion, could traffic actually, if you did prevent the left-hand turn there, which I'm not suggesting by any means, but could that actually have traffic queue up onto I-95?
If you had a left turn, right, only at the site itself, and then some of that traffic is going to go back towards, let's say downtown or the library in town itself. And by the way, just for reference, about 35% of this traffic wants to go in that direction. Westbound, if you will, on Boston Post Road into town itself. It's about, depending how you calculate, it could be about 100 vehicles if you look at all the volume, but there are certain credits that you apply. Some of this traffic's already on the road. Not everyone drives from home to go to 7-Eleven in the morning. Someone may drive to work and go past it, become a patron by turning left to that driveway, get gas, leave and go back out, make a left turn and continue towards Stanford on Boston Post Road. So that's when we say new traffic, pass-by traffic. They're all different categories of that. But it's a concern. Yeah, it's an absolute concern. And obviously, there would never be a possibility of a traffic signal at this driveway. It doesn't have the traffic, and the state certainly wouldn't approve it or permit a traffic signal at a 7-Eleven driveway. And I know you're not thinking that, but someone at the hearing will probably ask for that. It's not an opportunity to do that. Even Birch Road is not an opportunity for a traffic signal because the volume coming out of Birch Road is too low to get to a point where it meets that criteria for a traffic signal. And we don't want traffic signals at every corner, obviously, because that creates other issues. So.
Mike, is there a way to project the amount of traffic that would be traversing that area between, say, the hours of midnight and 6 a.m., where now there's nothing open in that area? If an application like this was open 24 hours, is there a way to project how many cars would be in that area in that time frame?
That might be a two-part answer. One is the volume of traffic on Boston Post Road. That data is, I'm sure, available from the state. They have the machines that run all day long. So when they do a count, they do a typical weekday, and it's a 24-hour count. The state doesn't do Saturday counts, so there's nothing for a Saturday that gives you 24 hours or even peak hour. For a 7-Eleven type of development, there's two ways of doing it. One is to estimate it based on, data that I obtained from a traffic organization that we all belong to, as well as the state. The other opportunity is to go out and count another 7-Eleven store that has 12 pumps in it and use that as a reference. Now, one of the things the applicant's traffic engineer did not do, although we suggested it probably more than a couple of times early on, was because of the pandemic and everything not running full capacity, they didn't do a traffic count at the Duchess driveway. I suggested they should have counted it and then apply that and match it up to what we call trip generation rates provided by it's a federal organization. It's called ITE, Institute of Transportation Engineers, that gives you trip rates for every type of land use. It's about 4 volumes of books that, I can pick out any land use you want and tell you what the traffic would be. And those numbers are pretty good, actually. And we've gone back and actually done counseling off and matching. So that's pretty good. But the reason why we felt so strongly about them counting the driveway, even though the numbers would not be, full capacity of a Duchess, it would have given them distribution patterns where people are coming from and going to at that driveway. Because we spent a lot of time on, well, where are these people coming from that will go to 7-Eleven? And at one of the hearings, the attorney representing the applicant said, well, no one's coming off the turnpike. That's not their customer. They want to have people that are local. Traffic engineer in one of our meetings said, well, we're going to have a lot of traffic coming off of I-95. And I said, well, you can't have both. You need to make that decision, which one you want. And now they have about 35% of the traffic coming off of I-95 in the morning and the afternoon to go to this gas station. You know, of course, there's a gas station rest stop on 95 just south of there. So, you know, you can argue how many people are going to get off at 7-Eleven. I don't know. If you like a Slurpee, I mean, I guess people drink those things. I don't, but people apparently go to a 7-Eleven for those types of drinks, and they may get off the highway. I mean, you can't see the building in the wintertime from 95. You can't see it in the summertime with all the trees in bloom. That was a discussion also at one of the earlier zoning commission meetings a couple of months ago. So there was a lot of discussion, you know, where's the customer coming from? And the applicant probably tried 3 different variations of that as far as where the customer may be coming from. And, you know, we settled on what they have in this report, which I think is reasonable. Could it be higher? It could be higher. It's very possible. I know there's a concern with, you know, people coming off the highway to go to get gas in Darien and maybe just getting back on, or, you know, staying on Boston Post Road to go through town. I think there's a little bit of a concern with that also. But in my mind, our customer's a customer, and you know, I can't decide which one should be there and which one shouldn't be there.
And Mike, the one thing that this doesn't take into account 100% yet is the fact that I have here highlighted the applicant should provide additional information on the number of truck deliveries, the size of the trucks, and delivery time. So I presume they would do that at the hours maybe that the chief suggested, but we don't know that. But if anything, that wouldn't have a favorable impact, obviously, on the analysis.
It doesn't have an impact on the analysis as far as the road conditions. The reason for the comment, thank you for reminding me, on the site plan itself, when you look at the plan, you may have looked at it already, they have some loading spaces that are at the side of the building that's up against 95. But they also have parking spaces in front of that loading space because they need the parking. And my comment, and this comes from Jeremy Ginsburg and others, not just me, is if there's a car parked in those spaces blocking that loading area, that truck is now sitting in the aisle waiting for that guy to come out with the Slurpee to get in the car and drive away. So they need to give some information on how many deliveries. Let's face it, a store like a 7-Eleven will have a Coke delivery, a Dr. Pepper delivery, a hot dog delivery, you know, whatever it might be. It's not coming on one truck. So how many trucks are coming to this type of facility? I don't know the answer. That's why we're asking that question. And I'm sure they'll be able to get it from other 7-Elevens and provide that information to the commission. So that'll be part of the discussions at the commission, the zoning commission level. And, you know, keep in mind, you know, 12 fueling positions is a lot of positions for fueling, and that's what's generating the traffic.
Like, where would the assume the fuel deliveries, right? So there's going to be a large tanker truck there.
Yep.
Would they have to go? I'm assuming they're coming off of 95 left.
Most likely.
Left into the lot. Would they have to go around the building, and then where is the delivery? Those hatches.
Yeah,
in the
I'd have to check. I don't know exactly where they are, but they would not be going around the building. They would be going around the gas pumps. Depending on where the valves are in the ground, in the pavement, they would line up with that. I would guess this type of facility, they would be loading gas, you know, fuel in the overnight hours or late at night, and not 8 o'clock in the morning. Hopefully, and not 5 o'clock in the morning. But
there's no issues with. No issues with turning radius of those trucks around those pumps.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you, but that's all part of the analysis of the site plan, and they show what we call truck turning templates on top of the site plan to show that tanker truck can make turns around the fueling positions, and that also would go into play with the emergency vehicles, you know, fire truck going in there and making those same turns. It's part of the site plan review, not just by me, but by, you know, the town engineer, for example. Would look at something like that.
So when you say that there was 180, I think it was 180 net positive trips, that does not include delivery trucks. That's
no, the delivery trucks, that's in the mix, if you will. But delivery trucks may not be there at 8 o'clock in the morning, but they might be there at 10 o'clock in the morning.
That was
but
at peak.
we don't know yet. The numbers that I'm giving you in the traffic engineering world, we always deal with peak volume, peak hours, for example. But the numbers that they're using from that ITE handbook that I referenced would include deliveries, but most deliveries don't occur at that time in the morning.
Correct. Got
They
it.
certainly don't occur that time at 5 o'clock at night. They're there earlier in the morning,
Yep.
usually. Maybe not the fuel truck, but the
Fuel truck I can imagine, but lots of food and soda deliveries and all of
Yeah,
that candy might not be.
It's more
5
likely in the morning sometime. Yep.
I don't
Like, is
know.
it noted? Sorry, Chief.
Yeah, just real quick, Mike, we've worked on a few projects of substantial land use changes like this, and like Whole Foods and the shopping center that's by Old Kings Highway North. And this might be a little bit of a rhetorical question because I just want to make sure that I'm not missing it. Is there anything in this application, as far as the legal traffic authority goes for the police commission, is there anything here that makes traffic flow better, more safely, more efficiently? Are there any upgrades proposed on the part of the applicant that would make our traffic situation, which we know is our main complaint in the town of Darien, largely is traffic? Is there anything in this application that's making it better?
No, they don't offer any recommendations to mitigate their traffic. And that's really a two-part. The responsibility of a traffic engineer is if you increase delay, for example, at an intersection. Let's say you're analyzing the intersection with the traffic signal that's right by the southbound on-ramp to I-95. And let's say you change what we call the level of service. There's more delay. We have, and that delay brings it to a much longer delay, which has to be addressed. We have the obligation of going in and making recommendations to change the timing of the traffic signal. Now, the state not that long ago made some modifications to that traffic signal, and this applicant is not making any recommendations because there isn't a need for it, that traffic signal to make that change to the green time or the red time or whatever. But that's usually the first step. If you have a traffic signal that's operating with normal delays, that bring you into level of service A is just like school, everything is great. As you go down to the C, you start getting yourself in trouble. In traffic engineering, it's more delay. E is what we call capacity. F is failure. More recently, we call it more delay and more congestion. But there's nothing in this report that makes a suggestion to change anything. Their real focus, because of what they've analyzed, is really the driveway itself, 1 lane versus 2 lanes, left turn, no left turn. But at the interchange, the off ramp from I-95 southbound, that's the place where we need some attention. I'm not so sure this applicant can really come in and make modifications to that. I think that's a much bigger issue. Not saying that they shouldn't be doing something. If I thought there was something that they can do, we would have recommended it, without a doubt. We did, Whole Foods. I'm not sure how many years ago we did that, but we did a lot of analyses for that other than what the applicant submitted. And you definitely will recall there was a lot of mitigation for that store. They replaced traffic signals. They made modifications to the off-ramp for 95. They reconfigured, the approach of Ledge Road to the Boston Post Road intersection, changed the time. We were involved with all of that, and we actually made some of those recommendations. So depending on the project, depending on the size, depending on the location, yeah, sometimes you make recommendations to provide mitigation, and then the applicant may have to pay for it. What this applicant needs, other than from the town level, as far as, I guess the site plan approval and whatever goes with that, they need what's called an encroachment permit from the state of Connecticut. And that permit permits them, assuming they get an approval and they go to the state for, a review, it permits them to modify their driveway. And that'll be, right now it's 1 lane in, 1 lane out with a painted median down the middle. I'm guessing there was a raised median there at some point in the past. I don't remember. If you look at the pavement, it looks like they took something out, like curbing, and paved it so the trucks can go in and out, is my guess. But am I right? Okay. It's kind of hard to, cover things like that unless you repave the entire driveway. But they have to fix that driveway, and it's in the state right of way, so they can't do it with just a town approval. They have to go to the state. And the state has made some comments already, as for drainage, for example, and things like that. Okay.
So Mike, I just have one last question for you here, and comment, I guess. The bottom line is there have been several iterations of this, and thank you for the overview, very helpful to us. You're comfortable at this point, there won't be another iteration of this report. We should look at this analysis, consider this the final analysis, and provide our feedback based on this. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Right, and fortunately, I assume we didn't see the first 3 documents. There was actually another one that wasn't really publicized that they came out with, and we pretty much said no, which was back in November. So there are probably about 4 versions of this report. For quite frankly, a small project in the eyes of a development.
Kevin, Chief, Captains, anybody have any last questions for Mike?
Mike, I just have one question. If you go to page of the McMahon report on page 8, and I guess it's 7 and 8, where they have those bubbles and talk about the traffic. I'm looking particularly on page 8 on the intersection of I guess it's the off ramp to exit 13 south.
Yep.
You're getting off that ramp. You come to a stop sign for Boston Post Road.
For the northbound, you come
for east, right? Yep.
Yep.
And then you come, and then you have to go to another stop sign to go west on Boston Post Road, where you're taking a left. That 1056 number of those people going towards town. I guess my issue is I think there's a bit more detail at that intersection, because if you're coming off, you go to the stop sign, you go to the second stop sign, but if you're taking a left onto Boston Post Road, you essentially have to clear 2 lanes of traffic. So if you're taking a left, you can't just take a left.
Correct.
In that because essentially if you're taking a left and you stay in the far left lane, you're getting onto the on-ramp to 95, right? You have to clear 2 lanes of traffic there.
2 wide lanes, actually. It's 2 wide lanes going southbound or westbound. Yeah, and
it's not.
And the striping for the split, if you will, between the ramp and Post Road comes all the way up to that intersection. So you have to go across to get into the right lane to go straight into town. You are correct. And that's a challenge.
When he's doing the speed limit in that area too.
Yeah, it's a challenge to do that.
That's a fairly recent change from the DOT, and that was to ameliorate and mitigate accident sideswipes that were happening there with regularity, with people with indecision of whether they were getting on the highway or 2 lanes were going down the Post Road and people were switching lanes.
Yeah.
That has largely abated that sideswipe type collision, but it is difficult. You have to get right over into that solid lane to the other side if you're going towards town.
Yeah, and
We've spoken to the state several times about it, about potentially shortening that solid line, and they believe it is operating to the best it can under that configuration.
Yeah, and they're probably right. It's a challenge. It's not a typical intersection by any means. And the biggest concern is getting caught up in that median when you're waiting to make that second left turn, the first left turn, really. It's a challenge. And then you get 2 cars next to each other because you don't want to get hung up in the northbound lanes. So you go next to the guy that's waiting to make a left in the median, and you're next to that person, or he wants to go into the gas station across the street. So
any type of large delivery truck can't fit in that median.
Absolutely.
And not so much clearance for, say, a Coca-Cola truck, but I would say 25 times or more in my career, we have had to get a heavy duty wrecker there to pull a car carrier who have bottomed out on that median. For an hour while we're waiting for heavy duty wreckers to pull it off because of the way that hump is.
Yeah.
And there's real quick on a background there, and Jeremy Ginsburg could speak to this because he can give you chapter and verse, but at least 20 years ago, predating my time with legal traffic matters, that the state wanted to come through and do a complete change of this corridor between the Dutchess parcel, pretty much, entrance 13, and the Norwalk line to take out all those crossovers and basically have it mirror what's on Connecticut Avenue for 2 lanes in each direction, a straight shot.
Yep.
The town at that point did not want that. So that's why it remains in the configuration that it's in, so.
Yeah. I heard about that. Yep. Yeah, I didn't know how long ago it was, but yeah.
Could be 25 years ago. I'm dating myself, I know.
Well, that's also why, in the repaving of Boston Post Road by the state in the last 2 years or so, they kind of didn't touch the interchange. So, okay.
Like, last question, is it at all, would you think that an exit to the rear of the 7-Eleven directly onto the 13 South on-ramp would help alleviate some of that, or is that even possible?
It would never happen. The state would never permit that. They won't permit direct access to a limited access highway, which 95 is. So no, they won't do that. Would it answer part of your concerns of traffic? Sure.
Just to echo Mike's statement there are certain standards you have to have for ingress and egress from a highway. Even our exit 12 eastbound, right? That does not meet the current spec. It's existing, so it's allowed to stay, but it would never pass muster today as far as the length of that on-ramp. You have to have certain run-on locations to get the highways. That would be an absolute non-starter.
Yeah.
Is that exit 12 south, or exit 12 south on ramp, Chief? Is that what you're talking about?
No, that would be the exit 12 eastbound onto Tokenique Road.
Yeah,
If you want to call it northbound,
off-ramp.
eastbound for us old timers, but I guess,
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the off-ramp, correct. Yeah. And even the on-ramp, to be honest, years ago, before they cleared all the trees and made improvements, you couldn't see a thing coming up that ramp to go southbound on 95. It is better now. Plus the lane is there, the acceleration lane is there. That wasn't there years ago. So,
Mike, thank you for taking, I know it was last minute, for coming in and answering our questions.
no,
We
that's
appreciate it.
absolutely. And I'd be more than happy to come back if you wanted to talk about it more after you have a chance to read the document. Just let me know. Just let me know.
Okay, no other questions, comments? Mike, we know where to find you. We appreciate you.
The chief knows where to find me, that's for sure.
And I appreciate that we didn't get the first 350-page
Yeah.
documents. No, this is thorough and complete and easy to understand, and we will plow through it and discuss. And again, we recommend, we don't vote, we
Right.
voice our concerns and comments and pass it on to
Yeah.
planning and zoning.
If you have any questions after today, you can always email me or call me and I'll answer the question. So
Perfect.
the chief knows my email address. But seriously, send me an email and I'll answer it. Okay?
Much appreciated.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
All right. Take care.
Okay. Mike's gone, but all right. So I'm going to move on from traffic if everybody is good to go to next item on our agenda. False alarm account. Chief, is that you?
Yes, it's just a presentation coverage for the DPT training room. What that actually is you probably see at many meetings or Zoom meetings or press conferences that there's usually a nice background behind the speaker. This would be what we're requesting out of the alarm fund is up to $500 to buy one of those. It's a graphics company will print it. We haven't finalized the design. What will be a backdrop for either the commission or the chief or someone doing a press conference? So you're just not looking at a wall with either a blank wall or a projector behind it. And most departments have them now. It does lend an air of professionalism when you're doing a press conference or a commission meeting or something in our training room. So I would make a request that the commission approve up to $500 for one of those backdrops for presentations.
In this day and age where we are all seemingly in front of various backdrops, I think it is well timed. So I move that we approve the request of up to $500 for the presentation for the training room. Second,
Second.
Second.
we're all in favor.
Aye.
that is that on the agenda, and it's a special meeting, so we can't add anything else. We will go, the commission will go into executive session. We will not be coming out and conducting any business, so,
We do have one more thing on new business.
oh,
We have a request for retirement for Officer Carrie Perone.
oh, we do. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the old agenda. Yes, we do.
So I think the commission got her request for retirement effective March 1st, 2021.
Yes.
30 years in law enforcement, 29 here with the Darien Police Department. She's done a solid, dependable, professional job for us for 29 years. I will heartily recommend to the police commission that they approve her request for retirement.
I never like to approve the request, but well-deserved, and we need an official motion, Chief.
We do.
I move that we accept the resignation of Officer Perone and thank for 30 years in law enforcement, 29 years in Darien Police Department. Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, well, with that, I should always print out the agenda at the last minute. Our next meeting, should we do that while we are still here together? I assume that people in planning and zoning and whoever else is discussing 7-Eleven would like us to make a recommendation or give our comments sooner rather than later. So does 2 weeks work for people?
Our next regularly scheduled meeting would be the 21st, or we can have another special meeting on the 28th, or we can go back to our next regularly scheduled meeting on February 4th. It's up to the commission.
I am flexible on the 21st or 28th. I would think maybe not pushing it out to the 4th, but that requires people moving their calendars. Does that either the 21st or 28th work for people?
Both work on my end.
Both
We're
work
doing
on
4 o'clock again.
Kevin?
Give me one sec, Kim. 20.
I mean, I guess I'd prefer the 28th, only gives us 2 weeks rather than 1 week. But Kevin, I'm happy to accommodate your schedule.
Yeah, I agree.
No, that's
And Kim
that's
is-
fine, Kim.
But I can be flexible, Kevin, whatever you need.
28 is fine. They're all those fine. They all work.
All right, well, everyone can double check their calendar, but let's, as we leave this meeting, say 2 weeks from today, 4 o'clock.
Yep.
Chief, okay.
That's fine.
All right, if no other business, we will shut this one down. Ready?
Just for the record, for the commission, I don't believe they're taking any votes, or we will not be reconvening in public session at the end of our executive session. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, everybody.